hear us?
This is David Starr. I'm with the North Cascades Bluegrass Festival. I want to apologize for the technical difficulties we had. So welcome to the highly anticipated North Cascades Bluegrass Festival's live interviews with the pros. The North Cascades Bluegrass Festival, one of 5 final nominees for IBMA's Momentum Award for the Festival Event Venue of the Year in 2018, is held annually over the Labor Day weekend. We are delighted to announce that this year's festival is just around the corner on September 2nd and 3rd of 2023. To enhance the overall experience, the festival provides camping facilities for both dry and RV camping starting from the Tuesday before Labor Day and will continue until the Tuesday after. Today, we're privileged to have the esteemed presence of the Kruger Brothers, all legendary figures in the bluegrass community. In addition to their performances on the main stage, they will be providing workshops during and participating in the Pro Jam on Saturday evening of the festival. Their exceptional talent and profound expertise are sure to captivate us all. Without further ado, let's welcome the Kruger Brothers.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi. Yes. Glad to be with you.
Thanks for joining us. Let's see if I can get you more in the picture than me. Let's see. We'll play around with the view here.
Oh, we good.
We'll just do the opposite. Drag to reorder. So let's try that. There we go.
There we go.
There we
Awesome.
are.
Now we have the focus on the appropriate individuals. So how are you guys doing?
Well, we're doing really well. It's been rainy here and very muggy now, but it's been beautiful. So
absolutely,
yeah, we love this kind of weather.
Great. Well, first off, let me say thank you for your patience in the technical difficulties. I much appreciate it. So let's start off the show by having you share how the Kruger Brothers became the legendary Kruger Brothers band.
Well, Jens and I, we started playing out for people in 1973, and played in different bands and stuff like that. Became street musicians in 1979, and then had a first record contract a few years later with the CBS Records, and had a bluegrass band. Then I became a country musician. Jens went over to America and played with Bill Monroe. And when he had an offer to go over to Europe, we formed a little thing called the Appalachian Barn Orchestra. With that was our first trio with a double bass. My brother's wife was playing bass at the time, and then just the two of us. And then that really took off. And after about 4 years, Joel joined us because my brother's wife couldn't tour anymore because of the kids, stuff like that. And that's when the Kruger Brothers became the Kruger Brothers, like in 1991,
91.
Yeah,
we had the radio. We had our own national radio show on Swiss National Radio starting in around 1991.
Yep.
And then we gave up all of our other band obligations and side gigs from 1995 on, and it's just been the three of us since.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Jens, I know our listeners would be interested in your collaboration with the Contras Quartet on your commissioned work about the majestic mountains, and I think they border North Carolina and Tennessee. And after a little research that I've done, I found that this work included the merging of chamber music and strings with the sounds of banjo and guitar. Probably not a normal thing that people would think of, but it's fascinating. So tell us what this meant to you as a musician, and maybe some of your thoughts as you were considering that journey.
Well, I always, when I was young, I also wanted to be a violin player. So I had a fiddle, and so I learned. I played for a while, and then I realized I was too old. I better stick with the banjo. but we grew up. We listened to classical music, and I always loved classical music. And then I always wanted to compose banjo with a orchestra, because I always thought that the orchestra sound is just. It's just so versatile and so many opportunities, different ones. And so when I was asked to write the Appalachian Concerto, that was the first one. No, the first one was actually a symphonic piece called Music from the Spring in 2006, which was full symphony. It's quite a challenge because I never really done this before. I always studied music theory, counterpoint, and all that, but I never really put it into, live use,
put it into practice,
into that kind of practice. So that was a challenge, and I think it went well. We all had a lot of fun, and then of course writing for a string quartet is a different beast altogether because you're pretty much working with 4 virtuosos, and so you got to know the instruments really well to not underwork them and not write things that are not easy to play or don't sound favorable on the instrument. But I think it's a great sound, and we had quite a few concertos now that we worked with as a trio with string quartet. And Uwe and Joel were at a conference out in Raleigh, and they met the Contrast Quartet there, one of the members, and they were actually in North Carolina at the time. And we met up and we started working together. And through the Contrast Quartet, I also received a composition assignment by the Chamber Music America and so forth. Then, of course, I worked Chamber Music Works, for the Banff Center, and more and more and more. And I, as a trio, with the Contrast Quartet is one thing, but we also work a lot with our percussionist Jody Call, and I think it sounds really good. Now the new one, we're just in the process of recording. It's going to be out in the fall, is with percussionists, like 2 quartets together, our quartet and a string quartet. So that's exciting.
But the Cascades, we're going to come just a trio.
Yes,
which is the actually the most transparent way of listening to the Kruger Brothers. We always looked at ourselves as the way we have our group set up, almost like a classical trio as well. Because of my brother's compositions. Joel's playing a wonderful bass, and I'm taking like the middle parts of it, and Jens is playing all the solo parts on top of everything. And I think even when I listen to the Doc Watson record, I look at it that way. There's always it's like a Baroque trio kind of way that we look at this. So it's a natural. The quartet was basically just a natural extension of our normal work.
So it's while you play, you hear a lot of things, and then you would like musicians, to write down. And sometimes in band situations it's hard to tell anybody what to play, but when you work with a string quartet, they expect you to tell them exactly what to
Well, it's also when the 3 of us play, just it is also the music is already very, very dense and very compact. Everything, there's not much room unless you plan it ahead. It's hard for us to even just fit a fiddler or a mandolin player.
Sometimes it is. For our own music.
For our own music, it really is. And so by writing for a quartet, and then we all have our parts to perform, then that becomes a wonderful extension of everything.
Yes,
it's absolutely wonderful. But like I said, if we just play the 3 of us, we have the same kind of impact as well.
Yeah, well, we love playing as a trio.
Oh yeah.
I never thought in a million years I would have the ability to challenge the Kruger Brothers, but based on what you just said, the Pro Jam is going to be a really interesting thing because you guys won't be playing with each other during the Pro Jam. You're going to have a fiddle and bass and so I'm excited to see how that goes.
that will be a lot of fun because we play over the years we play with so many different people, and we're invited to join all these people on stage and jam and play, and we love doing that because I think we always see that there are new friendships a lot of times forming out of these, and even recording collaborations, sometimes happen.
Oh, great!
So it's really beautiful. We're always looking forward to do that.
But I just noticed on the website, I hadn't looked before, but correct me if I'm wrong, but you have the red wine from Italy will be there?
Yeah, I was going to just kind of mention that
that's also exciting for us because they're also all very good friends of ours. And Jens produced an album for them not long ago, and
their latest album was actually recorded in this room.
Yeah,
that's great. I met Red Wine the first time at IBMA, and I was in the California Bluegrass Suite, and I was playing bass a little bit, and another lady really wanted to play and jam, and then all of a sudden I heard this fantastic music coming from the hallway, and there was no bass, so I went out. It was Martino, and I forgot the guy's name from G2, but Eric, I forgot, but anyway, and then everybody but the bass player from Red Wine was there, and It's the best jam I've ever been in. It was jammed for 2 hours, and Martina was helping along with not knowing the things and popping the chords like coming up 2 measures ahead. It was just amazing.
Yes, and they are just wonderful people to be around.
Yeah, they're great.
You know, that's also, you know, what always drew us to this kind of music was there's a lot of, you know, friends you make, you know, along the way, and it's like a community. So it's a very beautiful life.
Cool. So why did you move to Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and when was that?
Well, we played Merle Fest. We were invited to play Merle Fest while we were still living in Switzerland back then at the time, in 1997. And then we got invited to play some concerts in the fall of 97. And it started snowballing. We started having more shows, and we traveled all around America, did some tours, and North Carolina seemed to be a very good home base. You know, we sort of like found out that we can reach about 150 million people here in a 12-hour drive. A 12-hour drive gets us all the way to Chicago, to New York, to Florida,
Miami, yeah.
And it's just from and then also the surroundings, of course. You know, to live here in the mountains of Western North Carolina, it's an absolute wonderful place to be. It takes us a little bit more than an hour to get to one of the largest airports in the country, but we live in the middle of nowhere, out in the woods, in the Blue Ridge Mountains here, you know. And so this is an absolute wonderful place to live, and people were really welcoming. They made it really possible that we could settle here. That was
they made it easy for us.
Yes.
And then actually we moved here permanently in 2003. You know, I mean, that's when we all were here.
Yeah.
So what were your plans of when you were moving out here to Washington State and Bellingham over by our festival?
Well, if you make us an offer we can't refuse, we might think about it. You know, you know, I mean, you know, being, you know, already in Switzerland, our parents moved from northern Germany to Switzerland when we were kids, and Jens was actually born in Switzerland, and so for us, you know, to be in one place for just all of your life is you know, a lot of Europeans live like that, but we never grew up like that. We knew that, you know, when people ask us, how did you end up in North Carolina? Our answer usually is, well, we don't know if we end up here. You know, it really is you know, as musicians, we're pretty much at home wherever we are.
Yes, and Joel, you know, also immigrated.
Yeah, I did actually. I started my journey in New York City, and had my formal education, musical education, and everything there. I moved to Vermont for a year. I lived there for a year. I moved back to the city, and there I met my ex-wife, who was Swiss, and ended up moving over to Switzerland in 1989, which is where I got adopted by these guys after a very short amount of time, and from there moved to here in North Carolina. So I've done a bunch of cool topics.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm sure your audience and fans are curious about what you do when you're not working, performing, rehearsing, that sort of thing. Can you take a moment to provide some insight onto your lives outside of the Kruger Brothers band?
I think the most diverse person in our group is Joel.
Yeah.
I volunteer as an EMT with the local county rescue, and that keeps me busy because I have to continually do you know, continuing education and keep my medical training intact. And I wear a pager that goes off at all hours of the day and night. When people get themselves in trouble, I jump up and try to go and help.
Cool.
So that's when I'm not here making music with the guys. That's what I'm out doing. And I met another wonderful lady. Oh, it's almost 15 years now. And she's a mathematics professor in the university not far from here. So I try to devote as much time as I can to spending time with her too. So
that's great. Yeah. Do you other guys have any hobbies or?
Well,
besides music?
Well, I play guitar, you know, so I love picking on my instrument.
Fine.
But you know, sometimes I have to give my fingers a rest or something, and I enjoy watching documentaries. You know, that's
cool.
This is one thing that I really enjoy and then I watch these horrible, boring English crime shows.
Oh, yeah.
I just started Death in Paradise.
Yeah, it's just something that is just like it's like a vacation for the brain kind of thing, you know. But other than music, you know, I mean, my guitar is my hobby, is what I love to do. You know, it's just that's what I do. And of course, I'm married. You know, you have family life. You visit with with the people around you. You know, we go. We have friends here in town that we see and stuff like that. You know, so yeah, it's a normal very bourgeois life in a way. You know, it's nothing really special because you know I'm not a sport. I don't do any sports or anything like that. But you know, I enjoy being outside and
It's great.
that's all good. Yeah, Jens.
Well, I get my composition assignments, you know, and so I spend a lot of time trying to, you know, invent music. Trying to just come up with things that are appropriate for what I want to write about. And then I also was always interested in instrument building. And even though I never built really instruments, I was always just very interested in the physics of it and the constructions and the history of instruments. And so that also led me then to work with the Deering Banjo Company, which I've been working as the research development director for the company since 2003. So it's been 20 years now. And so I develop, you know, tone rings. I develop wood rims, tailpieces, bridges. You know,
many hundreds of parts of the banjo.
Everything. You know, I work with Gojo on the tuners. I work with Remo Bella himself on the new banjo head that's out. You know, and so I'm really researching instruments, and I like to learn about the physics of instruments and how they work and how they sound and how to amplify them and how to record them, you know. And it's just things.
The recording part, you know, our studio. We're sitting here in our studio. We built this wonderful studio 15 years ago, and so Jens and I, we constantly trying out new microphones and preamps and stuff like that. We love our plugins and our computers and stuff like that. So there's always something to do that's a lot of fun.
Yes,
and you like to cook.
Yeah, well the cooking part.
We cook, yes, we cook, but it's a long answer. We're just normal people, but I just think, you know, we do all the things. We meet friends, and you know, but actually, you know, Joel does his EMT. Uwe, you know, he plays a lot of guitar. Uwe, you know, he likes to change strings. Actually, you know, every time I see him, he's got new strings. Or first before we practice, I got to change strings first. So Uwe, no, I just make it fun.
That's all right.
I'm just interested in our music. I think we love not to talk about music amongst each other too much. I think we like to play music, and we get together and we, of course, practice as much as we possibly can and try to work on our music, not just the notes, but how we play it. I think the way music is played is as important as the notes themselves. And I think this is why I like this trio so much, because we agree so many times, you know, on how we feel music should be played, you know, our music should be played. And we do really agree on that. You know, we hardly ever had an argument about
how something should be played.
How something should be played.
Very rare.
We are very, you know, have a very similar understanding of where music should lead us and what we think about. And that is really what is the base of our friendship, I believe, you know. That.
Well, we also share joy in traveling in a way, you know. I mean, the traveling itself sometimes is really it's really
joy would not be the word I would use.
Sometimes it's really tough to do, but to see America the way we are able to, you know, because to go all these different places and meet all these different cultures and all these different people, go to all these different cities, eat all these different foods, speak all these different languages is absolutely amazing. It is a life that I never thought I would be able to do, and we still get to do it at our age. You know, I'm an old fart, you know, so but I'm still out there doing it, and that is a big joy. You know, it is probably
also planning. You know, I mean, we're here in the office. I know this is a long answer. I know it's taking maybe too long, but you know, we like to be here in the office, and we have our secretary, our office manager. Her name is Caroline, and we're together, you know, here in the office, and we work on all kinds of projects, you know, that we have going, you know, with our booking agents. And of course, you know, we have to book flights and hotels and
design posters and merchandise.
And have, you know, we have friends, you know, who help us design and help us with everything. And we sit here and plan, you know, with our promoters, you know, in Switzerland and you know, concerts So that takes up a lot of time actually to organize the business side of a full time.
So you set me up for the next question, and because I want to keep our time and respect for your guys' time. As you travel around the globe, because you mentioned you like to travel, I'm assuming that you may have experienced some very out of the ordinary and interesting times. Are there one or two that kind of come to mind and say, oh man, I can't believe this happened, or this was a really funny occurrence, or it was just a terrible trip because fill in any of those blanks?
Well, for me, one of the funniest things that I ever saw was sitting on a porch playing out in a field and then have kangaroos running by us in Australia. That was totally surreal.
That was surreal.
Stuff like that is just, we saw kangaroos in zoos, and when we were kids, we didn't know that these things actually run around in backyards and on golf courses and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that. Stuff like that happens all the time. We go up to Maine, people invite us on a trip on a schooner, and we eat lobster that's just straight out of the sea and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. We're really privileged that way that we get to see a lot of these things.
Well, we've been on a few flights where we really, like the Pope, almost kissed the ground when we were down. So when you travel as much as you see also things that are not funny. And of course, one of the most surprising time was when COVID hit and we played in Europe, and we were in the midst of a tour, and one of the concerts in Switzerland was already canceled when we played a big show in Zurich. And then while we were at the airport next morning at 6, they closed down Switzerland, and we were on our way to England. And then we had a big show in England, Northern England, and we played that show, and the next morning they closed down England. And
when we came
we came to America, and America was shut down. So
Washington, we were like the only people at the airport.
It's the weirdest.
Yeah, we were on one of the last flights that they allowed back into the country.
Yes, and also when 9/11, in all these years, 9/11 Uwe was in America at the time, and I was in Switzerland with Joe, and we were actually we should have played a concert, but of course we couldn't fly, and then Uwe got stuck in America, and we were in Europe, so we couldn't.
And your pilot took a detour over New York. You actually saw it, right?
Yeah, we actually saw the smoldering remains.
Just 2 years ago, we were the farthest apart we ever could get apart
from each other.
Uwe was in Switzerland, and I was in New Zealand.
Yeah, Joel was in San
Francisco.
So we were about as far away from each other as we could get.
And it didn't feel good.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah. So, Joel, tell us about your beautiful bass. Who made it? When you got it, etc.
The bass that I primarily play is made by a luthier from Northern California, from Healdsburg, California. His name is Tom Rebecki, and he is world renowned for his archtop guitars. He's out of that Benedetto school of archtop guitar making and everything. And we were performing at the NAMM show in Los Angeles many years ago, probably about 12 years ago now. And he was walking down the aisle with a wonderful Bay Area bass player named Bobby Vega, who played with everybody from that whole Bay Area, Carlos Santana and Sly, and that whole scene from back in the 60s and 70s. And I was playing on my Fender bass at the time, the three of us, and he stopped and watched us perform, and then he came up to me and he said, "You need to be playing one of my basses, because that's what this sound needs." And he was exactly right. It was sort of the hybrid between an acoustic and an electric bass. And I played that for the better part of the last 18, 19 years now.
Oh, wow.
But you've been traveling now.
But now it's not the easiest instrument to travel with, because it's roughly, the case is the size of a cello case, and it's twice as heavy. And it's just very difficult. So I purchased a wonderful 5-string Yamaha bass guitar back when I got in college, when I just got out of college. And I recently reignited using that with the band now, because we're really happy with the way it sounds.
No, it's a great sounding bass.
It's a great sounding bass, and it's much easier to travel.
And
with,
you got a custom set of pickups in there. I think.
Rob Turner from EMG Pickups is a good friend of mine. I sent the bass to him, and he actually custom made a set of
nice
for me, so that it really works for us. So
have you seen
that's the bass that I'll have with me when I come to Cascade?
Dan Eubanks of Special Consensus, right?
Sure.
He's got a new bass that he got from Italy that sounds like a bass when it's not amplified, but it's a fold up. If you ever get a chance to see it, if you haven't already, check out his bass. It's pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just a little side note.
He's a great bass player. I love this.
Yeah.
I love that.
He is.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask this of each one of you, but I'll single out Uwe. Have you ever considered making a solo album? Your guitar playing and singing are fantastic, not to mention your writing talent.
Well, we haven't done a new release in a little while now, since COVID and stuff like that. But I was always featured way enough on all the Kruger Brothers CDs that we've done. I never had a feeling I needed to express more than that's on there, really. And I'm not a solo guitar player. I don't play concerts by myself or anything like that. No. If I have an urge to play something really that I really want to play, I do it with the band. And the Jens and Joel are the most helpful people that I can imagine to play my music with. And if I write a song, it's never just me. We all write the stuff together basically and arrange everything together. And I'm really happy with that. I never had the urge to do a solo record or anything like that. No, it's just complete opposite to my brother.
I always wanted you to do a solo album, singing, more country stuff. Because I like that. The way you do it.
Who needs that?
Yeah, I think we need it, right, Joel?
The world needs it.
Uwe, respect everything you said. I just want you to know that even though I asked the question, but also know that your fans would also enjoy it if you ever decide to do it. So,
thank you. That's
so Joel.
I
little something about me that you don't know. I play or attempt to play a little bit of bluegrass bass and a little bit of swing stuff.
I noticed that beautiful bass you have behind you. Yes.
My main instrument is saxophone. So
Very cool.
I like to play jazz and pop and gospel, that sort of thing. So my question is, when you're playing bluegrass songs with your band, do you ever throw in some jazz licks in there just for fun?
I was very, very fortunate in my formative years growing up in New York, where my mentor was Milt Hinton, and I spent many years under his tutelage. So, his teachings affect every note that I play. So I cannot help but throw in a lick in here and there.
Well, actually, when Joel started out with me, I hired him just because my regular bass player couldn't make it. So I hired Joel as a stand-in. We had a couple of hours to rehearse beforehand, and Joel knew all the standards, everything that all the country stuff and some country rock stuff and some blues rock, that stuff that I did. And in the last set of the evening, I played some bluegrass tunes like Sally Gooden and stuff like that for people to dance and stuff. And that was when Joel was lost. But he started out with me. He had no idea how to play a song with just two chords. It was really amazing. So it's
a different kind of learning curve.
Exactly. Yeah. So for Joel, it was always like a little bit of the other way around. Then we started playing, throwing these songs at him, and he could actually tell what kind of song it was from. My brother would pick out a pattern of a song on his back while he was driving. And Joel would be able to.
What song is this?
Yeah.
It's been about a year.
We had a couple of dozen,
That's great.
Yeah.
But I think because we all work as sidemen as well, for years, working for other bands as guitarists or bass players, and just being on the road and touring with bands, and just being a sideman, a supportive act. I think that's also that was very helpful, for all of us, because when we play as a trio, I think we support each other a lot, and while we play. And I think that's what Joel really got also from Milt Hinton, is this idea that you serve, that sort of music that's happening. Uwe once put it in good words. He said, well, the music is not happening here where we play, the music's happening out here. And so we got to concentrate on how this whole thing sounds. And I think that's very well put. And I think we all try very hard to do that. And I think that's
the joy of it.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's what also Milt said.
Absolutely.
That's a big influence.
Serve the music.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I want to respect your time. I told you I was going to shoot right around 30 minutes, but I am having a wonderful time. So if you guys are willing to stay a little bit more, I have some more questions on the rapid fire. But if you need to go,
No, it's okay. We're fine.
Yeah, it's
fine.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Great. No, I'm having a ball. So, Jens, your composing is very melodic and great to listen to. Have you ever done any like movie or television work? Or if not,
No,
would you consider it?
Yes, absolutely. I would consider it. I would like to do it, but I also know that a lot of the film composing, I've been on a few on these seminars, at NAMM or, different watch, and I've seen, how they do that. They play on the piano and then they play everything in, and they use a lot of samples, libraries and things. And that old-fashioned composing like I do, really developing themes and, orchestrating everything the way I do, it's not efficient enough, to be in the industry today. But some of my music has been used, for some, sequences in movies and things, recorded things of mine, but not particularly composed. But I'm not opposed to that. I would love to do that
if you have enough time for it.
If somebody would like to, like to have something, in my style of music, I would be happy to do it. Course, but
I mean, I always think that Jens's compositions are very cinematic. The way he writes music has that visual aspect to it. Definitely, it's not.
Well, it creates pictures in the mental images that the music creates.
And the thing is, then
the gift.
David, do not make this answer too long-winded, but basically, in music, a lot of times, you try to not have too much musical content. Means not too much melody. Melody is like speech. You say things, you guide people through a sort of a longer period of time, through an atmosphere. And in movie music, you don't want to take away from what's happening on the picture, right? So you have a lot of sounds and a lot of effects and a lot of things that move quickly, and you shy away from melody a lot of times. And so the way I write is that a movie could happen inside people's minds. This is my goal when I write music, that I take people on a journey, on an inner journey, because it's not about me. People come for themselves, and take them on a journey where they can follow with their own imagination. And then for a movie, you want to support the picture, that's there. So it's a different style of composition. And but I have written things that would actually suit that very well, I think. So
and I would love to do a project where we would like play with a silent movie.
Yeah,
like the piano players would do in the cinemas. That would be a lot of fun.
Or maybe some of Uwe's England crime shows or something behind that. Yeah, exactly.
They do have some amazing music, and I usually have a guitar in my hands. I try to play along with them. That is the fun about these things.
Yeah, that's great.
Some strange stuff going on there.
So tell us about the Kruger Brothers Music Academy.
Well, we always were teaching, each one of us separately, already back in the 80s and in the 90s. And Jens really had hundreds of banjo students. And so at one point we said, why don't we make an academy and see, because we had so many people asking us. And then we wanted to create an event where people could actually meet and concentrate on the stuff that we actually know how to communicate, not just the techniques on the instruments, but also playing along with other people and performing, so we put all that in under this academy thing. We have a wonderful hotel here that helped us get a venue where we can do all this. It is very small. We just have about 70 participants every year, because it's basically just the three of us teaching. And then we have Josh Goforth. He's an amazing mandolin player and fiddle player and guitar player and singer and storyteller. Yeah. And he does violin or mandolin. And then we have Laura Businger that helps us with singing, really shape note singing and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it.
I think the academy, we put that very well, but I think the academy, we started the academy because we were, I was teaching at Steve Kaufman Camp or Banjo Camp North or, Midwest Banjo Camp or, with Gerald Jones and all these different banjo camps. But that would always, occupy the band for a week while I was gone, and that wouldn't really work, to if I have time, for myself, then I'd rather take a vacation maybe or work on something else, but not go for a week at a
someone else's
camp.
camp.
So I've done it for a while, and I really think it's awesome and great. But then we said, okay, if we do one together, then we're all occupied at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one thing. And the other thing is that we can really choose our own curriculum, so to speak. Not that it's wrong, to talk about, how did J.D. Crowe play or, whatever. But I really love I love talking, for instance, I love talking about music, I feel music is constructed and how important it is to understand, musical relations and how they actually function, and, how you can look at them and broaden your senses about music and your music, and, develop your musicality. And I think we all have a different takes on how we look at it and how we teach it. And I think it's just a beautiful freedom to have these people, trust you and then really speak freely about what you think is important.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And to be autonomous with this is great, because here in America, these things are possible.
Yeah.
You don't need a teaching degree to actually have people interested in what you do. We don't have to be in Berkeley or in a big flute music school to do this. We can do it here from home, which is beautiful. And our studio, we started it out in the studio, was big enough for a little while, and then we could find a venue where we could do it on a bigger scale.
Yes.
But so it's the whole thing that we are the masters of our own universe, and that is a wonderful thing.
Yes, and it's actually, I have to say, our academy is very heart-filled, if I can put it in that perspective. It's people, they found friendships amongst each other, and so they also come to the academy not only because
not only for us,
they
but
really they love being
they
there.
love being there with each other.
And it's almost like a family reunion a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, there's always tears when people say goodbye, and there's so much goodness going on during this. And
Yeah.
I think that's why we love music so much, because I think when you're on stage, basically, you have an obligation to the people, because you can say, I don't care what people think, I'm just going to present them what I want to express. But I see it differently. I think we all agree on that a little bit. That we have an obligation to, in the end, have a positive side to what we do, because otherwise I wouldn't want to travel the world, making it more miserable or anything. Not that it has to be constantly happy or anything, but just the weight has to be on something positive. And I think that's really why we were drawn to music, because it gave us that door, to a place where it seemed better and hopeful. And I think that's what we also can do in this academy, and help people not to lose self-confidence, in achieving
And focus,
what they would love to do. Right?
That's wonderful. I got into bluegrass for some of that same heartfelt stuff, because I used to hate bluegrass and country when I was growing up. And I went to saxophone, right? And then I gave my mom and dad a gift of playing bluegrass music. I bought a guitar and a mandolin off a musician's friend for $79. And I took a lesson from a pro in Seattle for mandolin, and then I showed up at their wedding anniversary to play. I could play, like 3 songs, but it was something that was meaningful. And then I fell in love with the people, and that camaraderie and that heartfelt thing you were talking about. And I was hooked. Now I'm co-founder of a bluegrass festival.
But you see the same things at your festival, right? People meet again, people meet new people, and
yeah,
it's music is really helping the community, and I think that's and if the focus is on a good intention and a good interaction between people, I think every festival becomes a success.
Cool. So I want to respect this time, but I'm going to do what I call the rapid fire. And this is 13 questions that I'm going to ask you. The momentum here is basically not a long answer, but just answer the questions kind of rapidly in one word or a sentence or something like that. So I'm going to have some fun here. So you can, each question will be answered by each of you. So we'll start with Jens and go to my right, I guess, on the screen. and it's meant to be lighthearted. So please try to have some fun. I'm going to have some, I know for sure. So what are your favorite hot and cold drinks? Start with you, Jens.
Coffee and coffee and water.
Joel?
Seltzer and chai tea.
Coffee and coffee.
Coffee. What's your favorite dessert, Jens?
Favorite dessert, Jens?
Oh, favorite dessert. Tiramisu.
Pumpkin pie.
Cheesecake.
Awesome. Who's the most famous person you've ever met?
The most famous person you ever met.
The most famous person I ever met. Oh gosh, I don't know. I know Steve Martin.
Yeah, we're friends with Steve Martin.
Roger Federer.
All right. Same with you, Joel. Steve Martin?
Actually, Johnny Carson.
Johnny Carson. Awesome.
Johnny Carson.
Well, that's David Letterman.
David Letterman.
David Letterman. Yeah,
Woody Nelson.
Awesome.
Johnny
Do you have any
Cash.
pets? If so, what kind and what are their names?
I don't have any cats. I have
Pets. Any pet.
Pets.
Pets.
Yeah.
We have
Well,
dogs. One Toby and one Nino, and one Benny.
And what kind?
It's two golden retrievers and a mixed poodle Irish set or something.
Okay.
I've got an orange tabby named George.
Uwe?
I got two cats and a dog. I got a black lab called Lincoln, and a pitch black is named by the Prince of Darkness. It's called Darkness. And then I have a little gray cat, and her name is Daisy. So they keep us busy.
Awesome. So how many nights have you guys? This is kind of an all question. How many nights have you been on the road this year?
Not that many.
Not that many. Actually, we did a Europe tour, and so I don't know, maybe all together, I don't know,
30, 40 nights.
40 nights.
Okay.
But it's probably gonna be pretty much constant on the road all July, August, September. We have
October.
1 week off in September, and then we're gonna be October. We're gonna be in
All the
Europe
way-
again.
All the way into December.
Yes.
So if you could buy any old car and price was not an issue, what car would you buy?
I'm not so into cars.
It's okay. You can say a Toyota Capri if you want.
Any car, you would buy a Jag E.
I was going to say
Yes,
my
I would
childhood dream was a Jaguar
Yeah.
XKE, but it's
Yes.
not really anymore.
Well, I don't fit in it anymore.
Yeah, I can't see past. The hood is
I
so
actually
damn
thought
long. I
about that,
can't. Yeah,
I know. Actually, I would like to have a Beetle from the '60s with the blinkers going on the side. Glunk,
Oh,
glunk,
yeah.
glunk, glunk, with the air cooled motor that goes. I think these things were cool, and we had one when we were kids. So I think they're cool cars.
Okay, Joel.
A 1969 Corvette.
Nice. Uwe.
A Freightliner. Honestly, if I could have any car in the world, I'd have a truck.
A Freightliner RV.
Yeah, and I put an RV in the back.
So on the same subject, Uwe, this would be a guitar for you, Jens, a banjo, and Joel, a bass. If cost was not an issue, what would you like to have? Or if you already have it, then you don't have to worry about getting another one. So what banjo would you buy if money was not an issue?
I think that nice to have. I would like to have Sonny Osborne's banjo.
Okay. Joel?
That would have been it. Yeah.
If I could, I would like to have an old Amati bass like Milt used to have.
Okay. Uwe?
I guess if I could have Doc's guitar, that would be nice. But I'm very happy with what I got.
Yeah.
But that's not the issue.
That's not the question.
Yeah,
Doc's Hoss would be nice to have. Just
Cool.
Because.
So for each of you, who's your favorite bluegrass hero?
Bluegrass hero?
Of all time, of course.
Well, yeah, yours. That's obvious.
No, obvious is bluegrass hero definitely. I started playing banjo because of Earl Scruggs, so I would say Earl Scruggs. That really formed my life.
But you did get to spend the summer with Bill, so that's
Yeah, but I'm saying it's not the favorite.
Okay. Yeah, that's
it's
not
the
the-
one
yeah.
that really influenced me. Because I don't play mandolin, but
Yeah.
Roy
Joel,
Husky Jr.
Uwe?
Tony Rice.
Cool. And
Yeah.
who is your favorite jazz musician?
Jens.
I think I have my periods of where I constantly listen to Django Reinhardt. So I think always loved the way he phrased and played, and his. I love Django Reinhardt because of his. He was so desperate, and there was this desperation to find some beauty in music, and I love that about Django because he put that into the jazz.
Joel?
I'm a little biased towards the bass player end of things. I mean, having had studied with Milt, there's some of the greatest bass players that were living in New York at the time: George Duvivier, Ron Carter. I mean, I could go down a whole list of them, but bass players have always been my hero.
Cool. Uwe?
I like Count Basie.
Okay.
He's definitely one of my favorite jazz musicians ever. The way he played the piano is just the ultimate freedom. Somehow. I mean, of course, there's more modern players and everything, but if I just had to listen to one, it would be Count Basie's orchestra. Definitely.
Okay. So this one's going to be a real interesting one. What's your favorite movie?
I think
fans want to know.
I think one of my favorite movies would be Forrest Gump. Because when I saw that, I thought, "Wow, why don't they make more movies like that?" That's
cool.
just brilliant.
Joel?
Being There with Peter Sellers.
Uwe?
Casablanca.
It's
the only movie I know almost every line on. I watch it all the time.
So I know how tight you guys are, but if you were not based in your current location, is there a secondary place you might want to live? Outside of Washington, of course.
I would live in Bern, Switzerland.
Okay. Joel?
That's tough. I'd like to live in the Virgin Islands.
Mm-hmm. I would live in a house up on Jaanpas, which is a little pass between the Bernese Mountains and the Freeport Mountains. I think that is the prettiest place on earth.
Cool. What's your favorite venue to play and why? So that'd be, you can answer it all together, each one individually. It's a tough question.
I think we always say, Staunton Opera House is one of the finest places, to play, because it's just a great size. It sounds great. People are friendly. It's just a beautiful place. And we played so many fantastic places and great festivals. But I think, every time we're there, we just feel well. It's just a good place. So that's one of the good ones. And of course, Altdorf.
Altdorf in Switzerland.
Goal?
Yeah. Oh God! I mean, out of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of venues that we played in, I think one of my favorite was the Ed Sullivan Theater in New York when we did the Letterman show.
Cool.
I like playing Merlefest here in Woodsboro, just where we live, but we all share one thing is we don't know what our favorite place is yet.
Yeah, exactly.
It might be.
We might be there tomorrow.
Cascade,
I should have caveated. It says so far. That's what I should have said.
Yeah.
So last question. You have to make a choice here on a food product: steak, lobster, lasagna, or a bacon cheeseburger with the works.
What was the first one?
Steak.
I'll say it again: steak, lobster, lasagna, bacon cheeseburger with the works.
Lasagna.
Joel?
A good lasagna is hard to beat.
A good steak is hard to beat.
That's true.
Yeah. It depends on where you are, though.
Exactly. It depends on which country you're in and what part of the.
Yeah, exactly. And who does it? Because all of those things are absolutely amazing.
Cool.
But when I spend a month in Europe, first thing I get when I'm in America is a burger.
But the nice thing with the lasagna is, that the lasagna has to go with a nice wine that is not too heavy. It's just a nice, light wine from Italy, that's a little sour. And then you have this wonderful, that's it.
When we'll see the red wine guys, you can ask us all that question again.
Yeah, I know.
So,
Well, when we were with Red Wine and we were playing Wintergrass Festival out where you are.
yeah.
And we played, and they had lasagna and, Italian for lunch. And I said, how do you enjoy Italian? And then they looked at me and said, it's not Italian, but it's good. It's good food. It's good food. It's not Italian, but
hard
it's
to beat good food.
So,
Well, guys,
that's very, very beautiful answer,
Yeah, but
I want to tell you that we all appreciate you guys taking the time. I've had a lot of fun. Before we close, if you only had one message to provide to your fan base and those listening today, what would that message be? And it can be a short or long. Just love to know what you'd like to say to your fans.
Well,
I think it's if you're into this kind of music, homemade music, this kind of folk music that is so unique to America, you ought to be proud of it. No matter who makes the music, no matter what your role is in it, if you're a listener, or if you're a performer or a jammer or somebody who provides concessions or cleans up the grounds after a festival, be proud of it, because it's really a singular cultural achievement that America has reached with this folk music movement. That's what I like to call it sometimes, because it's apolitical, it's a-religious, it is free to everybody. You don't have to be rich to participate, and it is an absolutely wonderful thing to be part of. Thank you.
Well, guys, I appreciate it.
Well,
Well,
no, that was a nice
it's
answer.
just one thing.
But
Great
the other thing is, just then, when we look at things, that hurt us, a lot of times in life, it's because we want something, right? And I think sometimes, you see people on stage and you wonder, oh, why can't I play that well, or things like that. I think these are thoughts that should never enter your mind. I think it's we all should learn how to be happy with what we got, I think. And because when we look at us, playing music, we're never happy with our music or what we play or how we perform, but we're able to forgive ourselves pretty well. And I think if we all could do that, that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. We are really looking forward to having you at our festival. And just to remind folks, on September 2nd and 3rd, it's Labor Day weekend at the Deming Log Show, and you can go and check out some of the workshops that are going to be provided by the Kruger Brothers at ncbf.fun. And we will see you guys in September, and we'll try to show you some really great country and see if we can convince you to move out to Washington. No, I'm just joking.
Well, I know that you guys have some great fruit out there, right? There's
Yes.
Fresh Washington apples, of course, world famous.
Apples and stuff like that. It's really look forward to because here in the South, apples are a little too sweet for me. And you have the cold nights before you get them off the trees. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Hey, guys,
David.
thank you. Take care, and
You all
looking forward to
take
seeing you.
care.
Have a great time, and thanks for all the
Bye-bye.
fun. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.